cloudy day here in Ottawa, Ontario at the Canadian Ultimate Championships Junior Edition. We're here at Ultimate Parks Incorporated. My name's Clayton Howlett. I'm here with Chantal Dussault, and we are bringing you our second stream match from the tournament. But first at this park today in our Junior Open Division between Newfoundland Storm and New Brunswick's High Tide. Chantal, we had a very exciting time last night watching a different game from our Open Division at Carleton's Tag Field. I know you're excited for this one, and you've had a chance to talk to some of the teams. What are you looking forward to this game?
Clay, it's such a pleasure to be here at the National Championships for Juniors, and the energy has been amazing. What I'm looking forward to in this game is that this is an Eastern game, right? So we've got Newfoundland and Labrador, mostly from the Avalon and surrounding area. So that's Team Storm, and they're in white today, against High Tide, which is representing the province of New Brunswick from Moncton. Et on salue tous les joueurs de l'équipe de High Tide qui parlent français, qui sont de la région de Moncton. On va faire la diffusion aujourd'hui majoritairement en anglais, mais avec des commentaires en français parce qu'on est tellement content de voir les gens du Nouveau-Brunswick ici avec nous aujourd'hui. So a great Eastern matchup today, Clay.
So High Tide with the pull. Wind is not too much of a factor today, so that's going to sit in the middle of the field as here a set it call from High Tide. They set a zone immediately as Storm sets up in a horizontal. Storm quickly moving the disc upfield. But High Tide with the zone clamped around so far still. Storm is faking some over the tops, looking for some options. And a shovel pass isn't enough to move the disc on. Oh, it is. It's called up. Look down from our perspective. But Storm looking a little frantic with the zone, but an uncovered Finley McGraw is able to reel that in and quickly flip for the goal. Number 7, George Parmenter on the board. So Storm able to sort of force their way through that zone, Chantal.
Yes, with that, as you said, that shovel pass on the sideline earlier on that was saved. And you know, it's these small moments of key attention and focus from the teams that will make the difference in a game like this. It is the first time that these two teams are meeting each other, so there's some nerves involved. But really kudos to the Storm White team for keeping possession and making that long throw overhead for securing that pass.
I think that was a good defensive point for High Tide. I always like to tell players when I'm coaching, if a team has to score against your zone or against your defense with a pass like that, you know, over the top, the entire defense reel in a tough catch or anything like that, there's nothing really wrong with trying that zone defense again. Obviously, you want to lock down that player. I mean, some blown coverage there, right?
Right.
But I don't think High Tide has anything to worry about after that defensive point.
And to your point, that zone defense was really good, and there is some wind. I'm not sure if the cameras are picking it up, but the flags are flying, and so the wind is coming from the right-hand side to the screen to the left-hand side of the screen. And so that pass did pick up a little bit on the edge, but was still a precise pass considering the length of it and the angle of it. So absolutely, good job on Storm for handling that pass, but good job on High Tide for that zone defense.
Storm's pull is low. But a little bit of miscommunication by High Tide about who's pick up. Beliveau looking for options. Horizontal set by High Tide. Sanchez flips that up to the line, brought in by Gould. Gould will flip that back to Burns. LeBlanc sends it up high. A great bring down by Beliveau to keep that alive. He wants it back right away. Arsenault looking for the options. High Tide moving the disc quickly now up the sideline, but then a big defensive bid by number 48 on white. That's Nathan Parmenter. Had two big plays so far. Reeled in that grab in the zone earlier. Now makes a huge defensive play for Storm, which could be an early break in the game.
We've seen some good defensive plays on the side of Storm. There was also Jackson who had that great defensive play.
McGraw lets loose, but Pritchett can't get to it as it turns over to the OI edge. The wind catches it and brings it down to the ground. Storm elects to go into a match defense here as Ebel Keegan set up his O, and High Tide right away with an efficient offense and another pass missing the mark. Rafael Nadal wasn't able to chase that low pass down, seeing some throwing execution errors by both teams here.
Yeah, just a little. It was Montague who had that good bid on D there. Here, and Montague's catching the disc now, so that's number 9, I believe. Yes, number 9.
Montague runs out of time and puts up a throw that's easily fielded by High Tide. Sanchez, who makes the play, goes up the line for Abel Cregan, and those two play a little pitch and catch as the offense gets in position. Abel Cregan finds Arsenault underneath. Excuse me, Nadeau. And that bounces off the hands of Gould. Pritchett picks up. His pass a little bit high for Owen McGraw.
And here's just the beginning of the game. Again, Clay, some nerves and some, maybe these teams are not as used to playing against such high pressure. You know, Nationals is not a common competition for these teams. An unfortunate drop.
Bear Cregan has been the shooter for this team, and yeah, like you're saying, it's just some execution stuff and pressure. I mean, we see that was a tough catch for Ryan Burns, but he is signaling injury. He made a big bid there, landed on his shoulder, and after he tries to dish a pass on that throw, he winced and then went right down after. So he's going to get checked out by the coaches. But Chantal, to your point earlier, while we're just waiting to see him get checked out here, it's early. This is the first game for these teams, right? While we did have the showcase game last night, that was special and happened on, it was the only time slot. And so this is the first game for these teams. So I think to shake out the nerves in these first few points is pretty natural, right?
Absolutely. And we were talking with Storm earlier, and they were saying this is the first year that they have, first year ever that they're having 2 tournaments in the same year. So Storm in black, first year that CUC is not their first tournament of the year. And so just to give you a sense of how high the nerves must be, it's a big deal to be playing at the Canadian National.
Yeah, that's a wild statistic. Our first tournament where it's
not our first tournament.
It's not our first. Yeah, Nationals is not our first tournament. Wild. So High Tide will make an injury sub.
And Ryan Burns is a key player for High Tide. He's on the Ottawa roster, and he's got great handling and leadership. So hopefully he can shake that off, and hopefully it's just a minor injury.
Stéphane Béliveau comes on for sub. And right now, that's observer Justin Lee talking to the players to work out where the disc should be. By rule, when an injury occurs, the disc is dead, but I believe the injury wasn't called until after Burns had thrown, after Burns had covered that pass. So that pass stands. McGraw looking for options, finds one in the middle to Noftel. Noftel breaks around. Pritchett. Go back to McGraw. Montague. Finds Noftel. A lot of handler core movement here from Storm. Montague. Sanchez just been baiting these throws. Makes another defensive play. Abel Cregan, been the anchor thrower here for High Tide so far. Béliveau doesn't have a dump around. Sanchez comes down as a pressure release. Sanchez looking for off the lines. It's not there. Airs it out for Abel Cregan. Goes right away. Gets moving, and good bang play there by the players. I think Sanchez did go a little bit late, but everybody's okay. And a good defensive play by Jackson Montague there. Pritchett has Montague from the front of the stack. And his pass is just brought up by Parmenter. McGraw goes up the line to Coffin.
We're seeing here sort of a horizontal-ish system by Storm.
Yeah, it looks like they're kind of coming down in one direction. They're not really taking their players out right now. They're only coming underneath, as we're seeing a lot of handler action from Storm this game and not a lot of cutter action.
And they're calling for a timeout.
So, yeah, timeout taken there by Béliveau.
So we've seen a few key players just in these early exchanges. We've got Sanchez, who's been just interrupting and eating up the points. Sometimes, a throw goes up, and as you say, I think he purposely waits a little bit behind and then propulses himself forward and just jumps on that disc. So good defense by Sanchez so far.
Yeah. You talk to some players that will talk about their styles of, match defense in the lanes, and some will play shutdown D, silent defense, where they're always on their check, and their check never touches it because they're always too close. They're always nearby and working.
That's
and then
right.
there's others that, play the gambling game.
That's right.
I'm going to sit behind you. I'm going to bait those passes. Sometimes they're going to work, and other times I'm going to get run-throughs. I'm going to get layouts, like out to the disc, and just beat you to it after your team thinks it's a safe throw.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's what Sanchez is doing. He's number 23 on the dark team on High Tide. And he probably got that from hockey because he plays AAA hockey. He's actually the captain of a AAA hockey team. And that's why he has such high IQ. So, field intelligence and positioning intelligence.
Well, I'm glad he's made the transition to the far more lucrative and popular sport of Ultimate. So players getting in position. High Tide setting up in a split stack where they're setting 3 players to one side of the field and 2 on the other as cutters. One of my favorite offenses I'll just throw in there.
Okay. What do you think they're going to do here?
Well, I've got 3 plays in mind, but I'm a Western Canada guy. And we name all of our split stack plays off airlines. So it could be an Air Canada. It could be a Tango. It could be a Jets Go.
Okay. And here we go. We've got the front player going sideways and the back player going in.
Abel Cregan has a wide open goal. He's looking for options. Abel Cregan asks for it back, floats to the middle field, takes his time as High Tide sets up in a vertical. Sanchez, that key player, comes off the front. He's looking for a continue. Instead, he'll go over the top. And with the big break throw, Gabriel Goul is left wide open.
So some good spotting by Sanchez to see that he could make that break side throw up above the other players, and again just picks up just enough wind, and that throw was clinical. So we were saying before he had good field IQ, but it looks like he has also some good handling skills to be able to position that with this little bit of wind and over the players and just inside the end zone.
It's tough. The vertical offense in the end zone, I mean, teams try different strategies all the time. One thing that has worked really well in a vertical offense, I think, through the ages in the end zone is that you, as a defender, you have to protect that open side so hard, right? And if you have a thrower that can break a mark and make those touch throws to the break side over the top, it's a real easy place to score. One could argue you have to have a better mark to take care of that, but good throwers, good throwers don't care.
Non, good throws, put it up anywhere. Alors, ce qu'on dit, c'est vraiment l'équipe High Tide a des très bonnes mains et capable de viser exactement où ils veulent. Et puis, on a vu un de ces exemples-là de la part de Sanchez qui est capable de passer par-dessus tous les joueurs puis mettre le disque de l'autre côté du terrain, ce qui n'est pas facile à faire avec le vent qu'il y a aujourd'hui.
And we do see that wind kind of pushing these poles back as it lands at, well, not even half. So Storm with good field position here. Nash was able to find Buckle. And Theriault takes off. He's going to air one out in the end zone. And it seems the wind kept that lofting long enough that while 2 High Tide defenders were in the area, it does come down in Storm hands. Once again, Chantal, I mean, Storm's making it work.
Storm is making this work, but
these throws have been tight, right?
These throws have been tight.
Yeah, they haven't exactly been crisp. They haven't been so definitive. These have been two kind of passes that they've scored with now that have just been just out of the reach of the defenders, right?
The decision making also, right? I mean, so far it's worked for them. So Let's see what works on the next point here.
Yeah, the score is 2-1 for Storm. So we are on serve. There's actually been no breaks this game. For the uninitiated, we like to use the same word for several different terms in Ultimate to make the game very difficult to learn. But break can mean two things. It can mean breaking a mark, so throwing past the defender when they're trying to make you throw in a different direction, and scoring when you start the point on defense. So if Storm were to score this point, since they're pulling the disc, that it would be what we call a break. Think tennis, everybody, break point. But that is how you win games. You have to get break goals. You have to get breaks to win games, or you stay, as we say, on serve the whole game, and you can't win that way. So this pull, kept low, is able to roll down to the sideline on the brick. Abel Cregan. He's able to throw a break shot, as I was saying, to Sanchez. Sanchez goes up the line back to Abel Cregan. He lets loose right away. That disc is going to stay in, and number 90, Gabriel Goul, with another easy goal for him. There's 2 goals for him now where he hasn't been covered.
Well, I think that's because he's quite fast, perhaps. Alors, Gabriel Gould, qui est très, très rapide, puis qui est capable de faire son chemin sans protection, sans défenseur dans la zone de but, qui a bien longé la ligne des buts aussi pour ne pas sortir du terrain. Il a attendu la passe, puis il l'a attrapé. C'était une très belle longue passe aussi. J'ai pas vu le numéro de la personne qui a lancé la passe. Clay, est-ce que tu as remarqué?
That was Abel Cregan, and he has been doing a lot of shots today. So it was him with that throw. And like you're saying, the line was perfect. I would also shout out his timing.
Yes.
You know, he's seeing as soon as Abel Cregan got it, he saw it right away. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, that's a shooter.
That's right.
I got to go, and just took off.
Maybe now's a good time to mention that Leo Hébert-Cregan was on the Team Canada Under-20 Open team. And so Hébert-Cregan is an experienced player, but he's only 16 years old, imagine that. So he picks up the disc and sees the field and can make those decisions and executions as well. So he knows what he can throw, and he throws it properly in the end zone. What an asset.
Now, did you say he was on the Open or the mixed squad?
The Open.
For the 20s? Open. So Open
team
did take the bronze. So he was coming back from Birmingham with a medal.
Right, they just came back from the World's Championship in the UK just a few weeks ago.
So better pull from High Tide this time. Gets him in position to set up his zone right away, as you hear Storm call it immediately. And they elect to go for a hammer over the top. Brought in by Finley McGraw. He tries to go up the line to an uncovered Broderick, but the pass is thrown behind him. So now High Tide with the break chance.
High Tide qui se met en formation horizontale pour faire des attaques.
High stall count, IO backhand, and then to a big flick huck. And Potvin has a great read on that to bring that in. We're hearing the chill call from High Tide to take it easy in the end zone, but they air it up. But number 10, Xavier LeBlanc reels it in, and that is a break for High Tide, and they take the lead for the first time in this game. The score, 3-2 for High Tide.
Right, and as you were saying, it's a break because High Tide pulled that, and they pulled it in quotes, gave it to Storm. So we expect that then Storm should be able to go up the field with it and make that point, but no, because High Tide got it back. And I just want to point out that amazing catch by number 76, Jesse Potvin. He read that properly, jumped up in the air, caught it with a bit of a twist, and then had enough composure to say, you know what, I'm not going to continue this flow. I'm going to look for a safe reset and pass it behind him, which at this level, Clay, at the junior level, is an amazing.
I have things to say.
Yes.
The classic red zone syndrome we like to talk about, where you work it down the field, you play your game, you practice it all the time, you march it down the field, you're following your plan, everybody knows the protocol, roles, responsibilities. You get it 10 yards within the end zone, and then your decision-making is out the window.
That's right.
Right? And that takes so much discipline and concentration and, experience, really, to be able to do that. So you love to see it at the junior level, that sort of discipline. I know most coaches out there, it is something that it just, I see them throw up their hands sometimes and say, junior ultimate, when we forget about that discipline, right?
That was a good level of maturity.
Pritchett facing a zone from High Tide here. He'll flip it back. This zone fairly loose. And Storm is able to find the holes. Manning will go all the way around back to Pritchett, but that pass is too high. And Pritchett, I think, thought perhaps she was covered, so he had to attack it. Sanchez will go pick up for High Tide. And they are in the red zone now. Perhaps they can show more of this discipline and maturity. Abel Cregan muscles way up the line. Just outside of the end zone, looking for options. Doesn't like the shot in front. He turns back to Sanchez. And after some double coverage on Sanchez, he draws them in. And Cedric Cormier is able to be he's able to get away as he was then uncovered, and another break for High Tide, the score 4-2.
And I think that what Storm did there is that they put a little bit more defense closer to the handler, which is not a bad idea, given that that corner was critical. But as you said, it was the back person that got open and was able to just score and get free in the end zone there.
Yeah, help defense is difficult because it means you have to leave someone open. If the whole team is aware, then someone can drop off and take Cormier as he runs into the back there, right? But sometimes, when you take that gamble, it can not go your way, as it didn't there for Storm.
Created an open player, and the throw was perfect, and they've scored.
We are seeing, I like seeing High Tide using the depth of their roster this game. We have seen some stars very early on kind of show themselves. I mean, Leo Abel Cregan and Sanchez have been out there. We've had Gabriel Gula, who's got half the goals for High Tide so far. But High Tide is doing a real good job cycling everybody.
That's right.
Right? And they're relying on their players who are kind of at the top end right now to make some plays. But everybody's involved. Storm, on the other hand, is still struggling to use everybody. It seems to be a lot of handler action right now, and a lot of errors are being made in the back. So we'll see with a change of personnel out there now if they can make something happen. This group will face a zone defense from High Tide.
And I'm sure they will adjust because this is the one team that doesn't have that many opportunities to play against other teams. And so we could see some faster adjustments.
Yeah. Nash and Brace working in the back here. Brace will scuba over the top. It's a little too high. And Beliveau brings that in. And High Tide using all their personnel. Have that in the red zone. They look for the I.O. flick, but that pass from Alex Alain is just a little too low for Beliveau.
A good idea, and what a good try at a break side throw, a flick break side throw. Not an easy pass to execute.
Brace facing this arrowhead zone, whatever you're going to call it. Cal zone, arrowhead. But facing a straight-up mark and then some under coverage is difficult. But Storm again finds a way over the top. They let loose right after. And Jesse Potvin makes the play.
Jesse Potvin just proving that he has this air awareness, just playing air controller.
Beliveau flips that up to Alain. Alain finds Xavier Leblanc. Maxime Beliveau. Stall 5 is able to find a dump, and it bounces off the hands of Bodie Bro, but he reels it back in. Potvin looking for some options, and after a little bit of a lull, Bodie Bro catches his defender sleeping, takes up off the line, and another break for High Tide as they pull away this half, 5-2.
Some good handler action between Brody Bro and Jesse Potvin on that last point. And I mean, we have to mention the awareness that Brody Bro showed when he captured that disc after it fumbled in his hands, because that's not always easy. And he was moving away and his body was turning, but he captured it and then had also that calmness to him to make the right decision. And between him and Potvin, they simply put that in.
So timeout taken by Storm here to probably reel things in. There's one other thing I want to say about High Tide, and you mentioned it earlier, and that was Alex Alain. He made that attempt at that I.O. flick earlier.
Right, yes.
Topped in the wind and everything. what I liked about it was the fact that he took his time and he saw an opening and went for it.
Exactly.
And it wasn't undisciplined. It wasn't rushed,
exactly.
right? It wasn't that red zone, everything's out the window thing,
Nope.
right? Instead, it was just an executioner. And while he's going to want that back, you know, it wasn't indicative of anything going wrong with the plan for High Tide. They have been really showing excellent patience in the red zone, and they're pulling away while Storm is starting to lose their patience, especially with this zone. And can I tell you some things about this zone?
Please.
So I've just been recently introduced to this.
Okay.
Right? It's a new thing. I'm old.
Not
right?
the zone, you mean?
The zone. No, it's not zone per se.
Okay.
But this style of zone.
Okay.
So this arrowhead
Yes.
that we've been seeing, what it is the mark comes down and marks straight up. So they stand in front, they stop pucks.
Right.
And then the two other people that be in the cup classically kind of form a wall behind
Right.
to take away the inside lanes. And this zone, what it's designed to do is make the offensive team throw the disc laterally a lot.
Right.
And that's okay. If they swing it in the handlers, you're like, on defense, you're fine. I don't care.
Right.
Right? And you play the statistics game. You make the other team play lots of throws, and you get your diminishing returns, and eventually they're going to make a mistake.
That's right.
And
statistics game.
Right? And High Tide is just absolutely exploiting that zone to do that right now,
yes, right? I've seen that too. And we saw it yesterday also in the match with Canyon applying that arrowhead zone. And we had seen Toro trying to get out from that. And what had some success yesterday, and we'll see if Storm comes up with that today, is when you swing that wide, right? Just as for any zone type defense, what you want to do is use the entire width of the field, because then that arrowhead doesn't have the time to position themselves, and there's more holes between the defense, and there are more opportunities. So let's see if they can use the entire width of the field and combat that arrowhead zone.
Pritchett right away against this arrowhead. See lots of coordination from Sanchez in the middle position, letting those arrowhead players know where they have to be. Seeing some lateral movement from Storm here, kind of what High Tide wants. King not seeing anything upfield, starting to look for a dump. Instead, he'll just do a quick little bloop over the top to McGraw. Owen McGraw looking for options. He finds Pritchett on the edge. Storm seeing some gains here. McGraw is going to try and sneak it through the middle. It pops up. And enough traffic in the area to cause a turnover as Ryan O'Connell did the work that point, causing the turnover by putting a lot of pressure than getting the goal. A double happiness for O'Connell. The score, High Tide 6, Storm 2.
Un très beau point de la part de High Tide qui a pris son temps après une belle défensive. Puis on a vu numéro 22 sur High Tide, Arsenault, qui a eu un rôle quand même important pour ce point-là, avec sa belle défensive puis son offensive pour faire la passe dans l'end zone.
And it is such an important point. Scoring on a team after they take a timeout. Ugh. Demoralizing.
Exactly.
Demoralizing, right?
Yes, because the other team is hoping that timeout is going to serve them, and they're going to build their energy back, and they're going to come out strong, and they're going to score. So then what do? You take another timeout?
Yeah. Well, you do it 2 per half, right? But you're not going to take one right away, because then it's like, I don't think there'd be anything more devastating to those 7 players. If you call the timeout, they get scored on taking another one.
No.
I would take my cleats off. Not because I'm mad at my coach, but just out of sheer shame.
No. They've got this. They're going to receive the pull, and they're going to be able to pass it up and make this score. It would make a big difference because, 6-3 is a much different score than 7-2.
Yeah.
Great bid.
Race. Looking for options. A little bit of a miscue and a close call there, but Barfitt keeps it alive.
Kyle Hébert qui est très présent en défensive et qui doit faire peur à l'équipe en blanc.
Now Storm seeing some movement upfield. Barfitt looking for options. He looks to the swing, but kind of looking everywhere, but he's able to find Brace. Comes down from up the line. Brace fakes a few over the tops. He wants to get that to the break side, but a lot of pressure from the defense, and he's not able to execute that throw. Goes into the ground. High Tide here in the red zone. They set up in a vertical.
High Tide is forcing some throws that are risky throws.
Belivo's pass to Pivovarov, I believe that was him, as he is tall and elevates to make the catch there. And Chantel, you were saying earlier, the score 7-2, a little bit of a different thing.
It's different. So 7-2 now, there's a 5-point gap. That's a little bit tougher to overcome, but you know, it's just the opportunity to play this game and to sort of, you know, regroup for Storm. You know, we were saying this is the team that doesn't get the chance to play many games per year. So, you know, let's just see this as a very forming game, as something that they can learn from and that they can get gelled by. So still really an important game for Storm as they continue to learn from what they're being forced to compete against here with High Tide.
I think Storm is currently suffering from a little bit of a depth problem when it comes to playing against this zone. So I'm feeling as if they need more players that are willing to come into the mix with the handlers and just play some really quick give-goes, right? Some tic-tac-toe with 3-yard, 4-yard passes, where right now we're seeing them, even in a zone, they're still kind of sticking with that horizontal, right?
They
with
are.
That 3-back, 4-head.
They are. And I've seen, for example, in a previous point, there was Pritchett who saw, you know, something far off, and it was something along the lane, and he could have put it up as an, you know, an outside-in throw, but chose not to. So I think you have a point there that the team is still sort of calibrating whether or not they want to use all of their assets and at what time they want to use them. So Pritchett now with the disc. The crowd is yelling Callahan because if there's an interception in the end zone, it's an automatic point for the black team.
So Storm again electing to take that big over-the-top shot, and
they're being forced by the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have many options. There's very good defense. So they take what they think they can throw and what they think they can land as a throw. So
yeah,
sometimes with the wind it can be a bit unpredictable.
Sanchez with the disc. We've seen him and Abel Cregan doing a lot of work. He's
saying, was I it?
No, yeah, but he quickly flips it to Sanchez. The observers are there to help us out with those in and out calls, and after they signaled out, or not in the end zone anyway, he immediately just came back and had a quick flip to Sanchez, which is totally within the rules. Maybe took advantage of a little confusion that was happening for Storm there. The score now 8-2, so that takes us to half.
And let's just talk for a second before we resume the half, before we summarize the half. Leo Ouvert-Cregan, as we were mentioning, he's part of the TC U20 Open team, and his father is one of the coaches on this team. And fun fact, the Cregan family are founding members of the Bare Naked Ladies music group.
What?
Yes, this
I
is
have not
the
read this yet.
family. This is the no, you didn't read it because I was talking to the team, so it's not in our official
it's not in
notes.
the notes. Oh wow. Okay, inside scoop.
Inside scoop. So very close to the Bare Naked Ladies group, which I grew up with. So I was very excited to find out about this fun fact.
I messed up I messed that up. And no, there was a video over top of you.
Okay, we'll do it. Coming back in, right? Yeah, that is fun.
I messed up I messed that up.
Welcome back, Canadian Ultimate fans. Clayton Howlett and Chantal Dussault here at Ultimate Parks Incorporated in the nation's capital of Ottawa, bringing you the Canadian Ultimate Championships Junior Edition. We are featuring a match in our Open Juniors division right now between High Tide and Storm. High Tide coming from New Brunswick, Storm from Newfoundland, so an Eastern Canada matchup. The score right now, 8-2 for High Tide. We've seen them pulling away here in the first half with a very strong zone. We're here in what is a cloudy day, but after a lot of rain and everything, the fields are in good shape. We are on our showcase field here, which is sponsored by Discraft and Be Ultimate. Discraft obviously providing us the most important equipment, the discs, and Be Ultimate, the apparel for many of the staff here this weekend, and also featuring a merch tent that players can pick up branded and specific kit to this tournament. Chantal's story so far in this game has been discipline from High Tide, I think.
Absolutely. And High Tide has not only shown discipline, like you mentioned, for all the offensive plays where they've shown great nerves and calm decision making. They've also applied a difficult zone, difficult for Storm to counter. And we'll see if that's what they do. And an uncharacteristic drop from High Tide here.
Yeah, I haven't seen very many drops from them so far, but Falls just seemed to take his eye off it at the last second here. So now Storm in the red zone elects to go for the hammer. It double helixes, but it's brought in by, unfortunately, I didn't see. I think that was Rowan Theriault who made that catch. We've seen these high-risk throws from Storm all game. That one connects. So
that's an important point for Storm because the game was getting away from them. And so I'm sure they're going to be happy to sense that after a halftime, they regrouped and they were able to connect on a risky throw, but still, at least this one connected, Clay.
But also a break point.
A break point.
Because High Tide dropped that right off the hop. So High Tide started the game on defense. So in the second half, they get to receive the pull and start on offense. And with that drop and then a quick score by Storm, while it was a high-risk throw, punching in that goal right away, like you say, momentum. Out of half, great, but then to get a break right away too.
Ça envoie un message à High Tide. C'est pas le temps de se reposer. C'est pas parce que vous avez gagné la première demi haut la main que la deuxième demi va être facile. Donc alors Storm envoie le message. On est ici pour jouer. Puis we mean business.
Yeah, so like you can't take your head out of the game.
No,
you can't take your foot off the gas. Right? You might be up 8-3, or 8-2, but who cares? Teams have come back from larger deficits.
Exactly.
Pritchett's pull is low, but a laser. And gets to the goal line, flipped to Abel Cregan. Seeing a match defense again from Storm. Abel Cregan's going to air that out to Sanchez. They've been connecting all games. Sanchez unable to run that one down. We've seen from this perspective that forehand, OI, with the bottom of this catching the wind, has been sailing away from everybody.
Right. There's a little bit of wind coming from the bottom of your screen to the top of the screen, and it does catch the edge of the disc, and it will make it turn into directions that handlers don't necessarily anticipate.
Montague and Pritchett play a little pass that bounces off the hands of Owen McGraw. So now High Tide back on offense.
And we see the observers here in yellow, and the observer's job is to facilitate some of the line callings and timings.
Samuel LeBlanc with another seemingly uncharacteristic drop for High Tide puts Storm back on O. Montague now. He's going to look for a deep shot. And read well by Jaden Smith, but that hung long enough for High Tide to make a defensive play.
I like that throw by Montague, though, because it was a long throw, and it's going to make the other team respect the back end of the field. So it could make cutting in easier for Storm.
Yeah, Boutoul-Lajoie really had to turn on the jets to make that play.
Right.
Sanchez stuck on the sideline looking for the upline. It's not there. He's going to find his partner in the handling core this game, Abel Cregan. He'll flip that around to Arthur LeBlanc. Sanchez gets it back, now on the other side of the field. Fakes the hammer. Alec Arsenault is able to toe the line and keep it in. He's looking for up-the-line options. They're not there. Gets some help from LeBlanc, and that's bounced off the hands of Sanchez.
Sanchez was probably already looking at his options and didn't fully catch before looking up.
Yeah. Pritchett had Montague deep. Montague had position, but the long throws by Storm have just not.
Not all of them have been connecting.
Yeah.
Not all of them have been connecting. Maybe they're counting on also just pushing the play back and then playing some defense from there.
So Sanchez brings that up. He looks to go upfield, but Alexander King saw that coming from far away, gets the run through D. Pritchett picks up, looks for Montague, it's not there. Instead, it's Owen McGraw who comes from the stack. Another point for him for the day, and now the score is 8-4. That's 2 breaks in a row for Storm.
Storm has the momentum after this. I don't know what they ate during the halftime, but it's certainly working for them. Maybe they should start to sell that.
I'm going to go with orange slices.
Orange slices. A great shot by Pritchett, who saw an open player, and it was a clean shot in the end zone. So at least it wasn't one of those long, throwy, risky throws. It was an actual open teammate. And so the momentum's picking up for Storm. And High Tide's feeling it. We can tell by the body language. And I didn't see, I was trying to figure out the High Tide offense strategy, and it's a bit of a mix. It's a bit of a whoever's open kind of strategy. You know
what I was just going to say? It's the handlers look down, and it's opportunities coming from the horizontal. Mm-hmm. I think what we're not seeing is a cut that had been made for someone else becoming a new cut, like a cycle. Right. If you will, right? We're seeing more a very static horizontal offense that just sees someone with a disc and then make a move, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than having been running and making something happen out of a cut for a previous handler.
And we're seeing it here, the very horizontal formation. We're seeing it quite well. So it's very structured, very disciplined. Yeah. Oh.
Potvin's pass is knocked away by Liam Broderick. Now red zone time for Storm. And
a three-person contact in the end zone.
Yeah, but no call.
No calls. So just incidental contact, and all players feel that was just normal.
So Theriault threw that pass to Brace, and it was defended, but he himself makes a huge play there to get it back. He flips it to Brace. Theriault now back in his hands, finds the break shot. Storm now working it down the field quickly, something they've struggled to do this game, and it's paying off about 20 yards away from the end zone here.
I'm seeing a lot more confidence from Storm. They're catching, they're throwing crisp throws. They're making hard cuts. This is a new team, Clay.
Yeah. Theriault sees an IO break in the middle, but I don't think Declan Barfitt thought it was for him, so unlucky for Storm. Potvin brings that up. Alain. Up to Potvin. Potvin airs that out. That pops up in the wind. And an excellent defensive play by Theriault.
And no call on that incidental contact. So again, both players feel that was not what caused the turnover. So that's fair.
So Brace Barfitt staying in the area for Theriault.
Storm looking confident, but turnover.
Yeah, High just seems to be waiting for those break shots. They know it's coming. They're lingering, but now another execution error from High Tide. Sort of plaguing him this half, these few points. Lots of mistakes from High Tide that we did not see in the first half. but they luckily get it back after Terrio immediately acknowledges that his huck was too low. Potvin reels it in, and High Tide is off to the races. Bro gets that to Alain. Back to Bro. That's tipped. Potvin stays with it and calls a timeout.
Oh, that's a good call by Potvin. I'm not sure if the coaches were calling for it, but it's a good call for two reasons. There had been some close calls for turnover up to that point on this one point, but also just the entire momentum of this second half needed to be stopped. So I think it was a great time for High Tide to be taking a timeout and regroup and reconsider and just come back with a different energy.
Yeah. I think something you said earlier, that High Tide really came into the second half flat. Right, their energy has seemed to come down on the sideline. They're showing a lot of discipline on the field when it comes to defense. They are baiting a lot of throws and making a lot of plays and staying on their checks. But the shift in momentum right now in this game, which we love to say is a game of runs, right, is definitely in Storm's hands right now. So a smart timeout by High Tide, not only just to set up an end zone play here, maybe punch it in as many throws or talk about some calmness, but also just regroup and say, hey, this is our game.
We got this, yeah.
And kind of our game to lose right now, really.
And I think it's good that Potvin is going to be the handler of this throw to put the disc back in, because he has been quite aware on this last point, right? He was the one who intercepted that long throw that was going to go long for Storm, and he put his body in the way, caught that back for his team. So he's on, and that's what you want. You want a team player that's focused and that's demonstrated that he's in this game, and he's the one who's going to put this disc back in the game.
Potvin immediately looks for the I.O. I like the play, but the wind messes with that a little bit and bounces off the hands of Alex Alain.
It had a lot of pepper in that throw.
Yeah. Brace.
But a good breakside throw.
Finds Parmiter. Oh, hi, Chantal.
Oh, hi, Clay.
Well, fans, you may have noticed that there might be a slight break in the stream because that last point was brought to you by gasoline. Or, well, it should have been that was missing out of our generator. So our generator cut out, but we're back.
We're back.
A little technical difficulty.
We're in the middle of the field, so it's normal we need a generator. What's not normal is it ran out of gasoline.
But you didn't. Okay, fans, you missed much because there's a lot of athleticism. But when it comes to score, you didn't miss anything. The score now 9-4.
You missed the 1 point.
Yeah, you missed the 1 point.
That was caught by High Tide. But you're right. It's not a big score difference since the power went out.
So Storm locked down in the backfield here from the zone from High Tide that has been very effective this game.
And High Tide is back in the game. Like we were saying, they had dropped their momentum. They're back. They've been making some incredible Ds, and now we're seeing again Storm making some unfortunate errors. The momentum has shifted.
Yeah, that bounces off the hands of Manning, and Arthur LeBlanc picks up. He looks for option, and there's kind of, it looks like Storm was ready to stop something on some sort of call, but the turnover there renders any fouls unimportant. So Storm back with the disc. They go over the top to Montague. Hearing calls from the Storm sideline to keep it moving. Keep that momentum of the disc. You don't want your handlers holding it for too long. McGraw's able to find an option. Coffin was looking for something. There's a collision between McGraw and his check. And so those players work it out. A friendly resolution to that bump.
And number 8, Ryan Coffin, who has the disc right now for Storm, has had a really good point so far. Been very focused in this point, very in the game, has made a good D, and now is present on many cuts of this O.
Manning throws a big backhand around to Montague. He moves that up to McGraw, who's able to air that out for Coffin.
Coffin, that was his point. And it's always good when you can see that, right? And players get in the zone. And when you're in the zone, you feel it. You feel it in your entire body. You want that disc. It's yours. And I could feel that from that last point. Coffin was so into it. And I'm not surprised that he was able to do some good throws and strike out for that and catch it in the end zone. And the score is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, the score now 9-5. 2 breaks this half for Storm.
Have you ever had that, Clay, where you're playing a game and you really feel it? You're in the zone?
Yeah, many times. I mean, granted, I've played many games where I've not felt that way. But, yeah, there are some games where you do feel locked in and you are the player, or you're playing your line, your pod, or maybe your whole team. Everybody has just zoned in and realized the only thing that they're worried about in life right now is this game in front of them, right?
Fantastic feeling.
And, you know, at the beginning of the game, I think we saw Storm specifically not there. Right? They had those jitters, and they were kind of figuring out and making some mistakes. This half, now they seem like they've settled in.
Absolutely.
With that focus, so.
And High Tide has been very present. High Tide qui joue extrêmement bien aujourd'hui, autant en défensive qu'en offensive. Puis on va voir comment le match va se terminer. Ils ont beaucoup de leurs joueurs clés sur cette ligne-ci. On voit Sanchez.
Abel Cregan facing a match defense. He gets away as there's some miscommunication by Storm on who has who. And he's able to get into a quick give-go with Gould. Cormier. He gets that right back and then finds Sanchez up the line. Sanchez is able to find Nadeau in the middle. Nadeau kind of looking around for some options, doesn't know who he wants, elects to go with Sanchez. Abel Cregan comes off the front of the stack into the handler space. No surprise, he gets it to Sanchez. Sanchez is going to go up the line to Arthur LeBlanc, who reels that in.
Sanchez to LeBlanc for a score for High Tide. Puis on doit mentionner que High Tide a choisi de ne pas refaire jouer un de leurs joueurs clés, qui est Ryan Burns, qui s'est blessé plus tôt dans le match. Peut-être qu'il repose, on n'a pas de nouvelles, mais quand même, l'équipe se débrouille très, très bien, sachant que Burns, c'est un de leurs leaders, puis un des handlers principaux pour l'équipe de High Tide de Moncton.
And they marked him as a leader, as defensive leader, right? And it was his shoulder that got hurt earlier, and they've really, well, we haven't seen him come back out, but to me, honestly, it hasn't mattered not having him on defense out there. The High Tide has really risen up on defense this game.
There's good depth in the team.
Yeah.
So
and, you know, that leadership, if you've got a team that's practicing all the time and you have a defensive leader that's really been pushing the defense and then goes down, good. You know what? Let's give him credit. The leadership has come through because his defense is doing their job.
That's exactly right. He's trained the leadership. He's trained the defense as a good leader. So they've been doing a very good job. Alors, félicitations à l'équipe de Moncton qui joue extrêmement bien jusqu'à présent, puis qui joue comme une unité aussi. Il y a une belle cohésion d'équipe, ça se sent, ça se voit. Il y a des supporters aussi. Maybe just a note, a shout out to all the supporters, families who are here and friends, and it's just great to see people are traveling to come here and support their loved ones.
Manning tries to go up the middle, but his pass with too much mustard on it for Montague. Oh, and a run-through D chance there for Storm, but not there as High Tide gets off to the races. Bear Cregan flips that to Bro. Oh, excuse me, that's Beliveau with the disc. He's looking for some options. They're not really there. He airs it out, and Storm has enough players in the backfield to do something about it. Owen McGraw reels that in. Now he's looking for options, but High Tide sets up that Arrowhead zone. We've seen them been playing this game. And then we hear the melt call as they get into match defense. A hammer over the top from Pritchett to Montague. Montague looking for the deep shot. It's not there. And finds McGraw. McGraw looking upfield. He's going to put that out to Nathan Parmenter, but I'm not too excited. We're seeing the hands up in the air from number 7, Alex Alain, flexing his biceps, which also happens to be the signal for a pick call. Picks are illegal in Ultimate, even if they're an accident. And because Alain was on the player who caught the disc, he is entitled to catch up, and the pass has to be erased.
Still a beautiful throw that had been made, and a nice read on that catch. So just to prove that Storm can execute on those, and the game is not over.
McGraw decides he's going to do it again. And a great read by Pritchett. Big Selly with his team. He's pumped up. Pritchett had the read on that all the way in. Storm, showing some swag here to go for that pass.
That's right.
Right away after the call to the same receivers, or at least the same receivers in the area.
And what's funny is that Pritchett is usually the handler. He's usually the one who puts it up long. And for him to be in the receiving end of that, I think that team was quite excited about that as well.
Ben Pritchett, the tournament organizers, thank you for not spiking it. Spiking, fun fact, spiking is not allowed at this tournament.
Right, and
for
what
the junior phase.
Is when you catch the disc in the end zone and you've won it, and then you throw it hard on the ground, that's a spike, and that's not appreciated and actually banned at these competitions.
Yeah. And if anyone's wondering, I got to sit in at the coaches and captains meeting.
Oh.
And there were questions.
About the spiking.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, what if both teams think it's fine?
Oh.
What, it was kind of like, if I spike it in the woods and no one's around to hear it.
Right.
But the answer has been
no spiking for anybody.
Never. Okay. You can't do it. Celebrations are cool. You have an opportunity to come up with some fantastic celebrations with your team that don't destroy our equipment or taunt the other team. So
That's right. And so I'm really looking forward to this next point, because High Tide is going to be on offense here, Clay. And I've seen High Tide put on their horizontal offense, and it's a little bit too static. And they're having trouble getting some movement from it. So I don't know if they're going to be making adjustments to it, but they're going to have to find more options with that offense. So looks like they're running into, again, that horizontal offense strategy. Let's see if they can build some momentum from it.
We saw this play earlier, that split stack.
That was the split stack, yes.
And
okay.
It's Abel Cregan to Sanchez. I mean, how many times have we said that today?
No, exactly. And I thought they were lining up to do a horizontal, but they were not. They did a split stack.
Well, they fooled me too. They started in that, and then they fell into that split stack play. The player in the front making a slash and going deep, and the player in the back coming down.
And that was a textbook play.
That was textbook. That's how they practice it, right?
Yeah.
You could tell right there. To your point, in wanting to see what kind of offense High Tide would bring us, I think that's exactly, from a coaching perspective, from a fan perspective, from our perspective, what you want to see if you're rooting for High Tide. You want to see an O-line that goes out there that's efficient, fast, runs their textbook play, and scores immediately. Get your D-line back out there. Get your D-line, who has been throwing this arrowhead zone at Storm all day and forcing them into some critical decision-making times that have been generating a lot of errors, right? So, great job. Sorry.
I was just going to say, Storm has put on some of their key players here on this line. So they've got Pritchett and they've got Montague, and so they know they're going to receive this pull, and I'm sure that they want to counterattack.
Now, one interesting thing about when we talk about O-line and D-line, I have been paying attention to High Tide's personnel on the field, and they have been doubling up a lot of players on offense or defense. And sometimes keeping the same players together, they don't necessarily have to play offense or defense. It's more of a chemistry thing. So we are seeing a lot of players who have been offensive stars stay out there on D. But speaking of which, a little blown coverage there by Herbert Cregan, and Pritchett launched that for Montague, but the wind catching it and just taking it out of his reach.
Some of the usual suspects, Pritchett to Montague.
Yeah, same on the other side, right? Yeah.
Yeah. About Cregan picking up.
So this looking like a more classic horizontal. And High Tide spending a lot of time looking at the open side. Ouvert Cregan runs out of time, puts out a big backhand huck that will sail to
another field.
Yeah, the adjacent field.
Yes. So again, we're seeing a lot of waiting around on that horizontal offense. The offensive members are not creating options for the handler. They're waiting for the one cut that's underway to either be denied by the handler or to succeed for them to initiate any sort of cutting. So I think they're going to need to get a little action going.
Yeah,
on
need to see more in the pattern, right?
That's right.
So a hammer goes up, lots of players in the area, and with 8 people under the disc, you're not surprised to see it get knocked down. Owen McGraw has made some big over-the-top throws this game. That one doesn't connect. High Tide with some momentum now. Sanchez looking for options. He'd like a dump, looking for Ouvert Cregan. They stay together, but there's a stall down called by Pritchett, I believe. We're just going to get a clarification on that. The signal for this is a tap on the head, but nobody's doing that.
Nobody's doing any sort of timing at this game.
It is coming in a stall 8, so it wasn't contested. Stall down. Sanchez puts that up immediately to Gould. He gets in the air, to bring that down. Gives it right back to Sanchez. He'll zip that up right outside of the end zone to LeBlanc, who does a quick flip to Ryan O'Connell.
And that's a cut that I love to see. So that was a 7 cut. So he ran, in one direction, sort of in a straight line, and then ran on the break side. And the handler was hoping for it, waiting for it, and there was execution from the cutter. He was by himself, totally open on the break side. That is one of those cuts that you want to have in your toolbox. Speaking
of breaks, that was a break point.
Oh.
Yeah, that was High Tide started that point on defense, and they brought it in. So it's score now 12-6. And we are 70 minutes into the game.
And it's an 80-minute game, right? So
we're 85. And actually, so what's different in this, in the junior level of the Canadian Ultimate Championship this year, there's one different rule than the other divisions, and that is we have soft caps and hard caps. The other divisions are only hard cap. This game, all other games in juniors, have a soft cap when we reach the 75-minute mark.
Right.
And what will happen when the point ends, you take the highest score, you add 1, and the game is to whatever that is. So let's say at the end of the point, the score is, I don't know, let's say 13-6, right? Once that soft cap goes, the game would be to 14. But, and then at 85 minutes is hard cap. You finish the point, finishes the game unless it's tied, where you play 1 tiebreaker point.
Which we call the universe.
Yes, yes. Some people like double game point, but that's a lot of words. So seeing some different personnel for Storm. That's Ryan Buckle, moves that to Theriault. Nash and Theriault working in the backfield. Theriault doing a lot of work this game for Storm. He's facing this arrowhead zone. It's quite tight. He'll go over the top.
Nicely executed over the top hammer.
Yeah, Finley McGraw there to reel it in. Blunden goes to Nash. Nash looking for options. Really wants to punch that in. Goes for it to Theriault, but that was tight.
The defense was very present on that point. I mean, I was looking for options myself, imagining myself as a handler, and there was a lot of traffic. I noticed number 88, Arthur LeBlanc, the High Tide team, just blocking, just as if he was a goalie on that front end of the end zone. So not many options for Storm to punch it in.
So Potvin comes back to Béliveau, but he's looking for options, and we're seeing a better continue now from High Tide, but so the Storm defense saw it coming. So now Storm back in the red zone, still looking upfield for a long time. That disc sails over everybody and then is knocked down by High Tide.
A very persistent defense there by number 29 on High Tide. Maybe 28? 28 on High Tide. René Forgue. Very persistent D. I think he hit it 3 times for it to come down. Oh, but then goes for an unfortunate drop.
So twice now Storm has spent so much time looking directly in front, looking for a reception. Maybe move it around with your handler core. Never mind. Just flip the backhand around to Declan Barfoot if you're Rowan Theriault, and get the commentators to put their foot in their mouths to get that goal.
Third time's a charm, Clay.
Yeah, third time's a charm.
So Storm not giving up and continuing to prove that they have depth in their team, because 2 key players that we've seen so far have been Pritchett and Montague, and both of them were not on this lineup. So some depth to the Storm team there. They were able to put that through on the 3rd attempt.
Yeah.
But they were.
Yeah. What I've seen, though, and this is happening a little bit in both teams, I would say far more in Storm, is the tendency in the red zone to just stare at the players in the end zone.
Right. You don't want to create traffic.
Yeah.
So you're staying in you're sort of static in your lane and your
stack.
But
the downfall of that is, especially when you're running a vertical, I mean, most teams, not all teams, but most teams run a vertical end zone set, right? So that means the team you're playing against probably knows what you're thinking about, right? Defensively, how to, mess with your set and everything like that. And Storm is spending a lot of time looking at options that aren't materializing. Right? And they look a little frustrated. They're asking, well, who's cutting, who's going? And they need more handler movement in the back.
Right. Handler movement, but also real options on the cut side.
Yeah.
Options that go all the way to the cone, all the way to the sideline. Because sometimes we start the cut and then we peel back to the stack.
Sam LeBlanc and Potvin playing some pass. They'll find Hébert Cregan. That's Cedric Cormier in the back. Gould flicks out to Hébert Cregan. Nice mint pass there. Up the line, uncovered Boutoul Lejoie. And quickly to Gabriel Gould.
Sanchez to Gould for the score.
Now the horn went right before they scored. So I don't know if I can get an observer's attention, but by my understanding, it should be a game to 14 now. So,
but they've just scored 14. So.
Oh, did they just score 14?
Did they not? No, they scored 13. Okay.
Well, you know what I do know? High Tide needs another point.
High Tide needs another point. And Storm would need to compensate the point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we could maybe try to get the
yeah, we do the best we can, folks, but.
We're up here on some.
Yeah, we're up here. The observers are very busy down there, keeping time, keeping the score, telling players don't go on the field until we celebrate a goal.
Exactly.
or signal a goal, excuse me. But.
So what have you liked from this game? What have you liked? What have you seen that you've liked so far, Clay?
You know what? High Tide's discipline is something that I would tell teams, if you need to watch good communication, if you need to watch some maturity and discipline in the red zone, you should probably turn on this game, and just watch the team that was wearing dark work their offense in the red zone. I really like that. To Storm's credit, though, I really like Storm's tenacity and don't give up attitude.
Absolutely. How they came back after that halftime and how they proved that, hey, we're here to win. Loved that.
Nash finds Brace. Theriault back and forth in the middle, but that pass is over his head. And Brody Bro finds Jesse Potvin right away. And High Tide capitalizes immediately.
And this is the point that they needed. This is it.
That is it. I can see High Tide celebrating. Storm coming off the line. So soft cap did indeed go. That is game of 14-7. High Tide control at the beginning of the game. It seemed to lapse, and they let Storm back in the middle, and then again just took over at the end of the game to take the win in this Eastern Canada matchup. Perhaps future rivalry.
Perhaps, but a great game, and I'm so happy that we saw this, and I know both teams were excited to play against each other and have sort of this Eastern matchup. And we're really excited for the rest of this competition.
Speaking of the rest of the competition, the next game will be featuring on the stream immediately following this one. Well, not immediately. There's a little bit of time. But in our next time slot at 12:30, Origine from Quebec will be facing off against Team Manitoba from Manitoba. So, tune in that for our first stream game in the women's division. I'm Clay Howlett.
And I'm Chantal Dussault.
And we'll be back with you soon.